afternoon, everyone. Let me start by asking one question. What is your biggest weakness? Now, surprisingly, there has been one response that appears quite frequently, and that is, I'm a perfectionist. The thing is, people are so quick to admit that they're perfectionists because of society's view of perfection as this admirable trait, something that you need in order to be successful. And as Thomas Curran, a psychology professor at the London School of Economics, once said, society doesn't view perfectionism as a problem, but considers it our favorite flaw. Just think about that. People tend to overlook this pressure that this idealistic perspective puts on you. However, I believe that it's society that's broken, not us. And so, how do we find this balance? According to the Harvard Business Review, yes, it's true that perfectionists, they strive to produce flawless results and usually have more motivation than the typical person. And I believe that that is a good thing. We need this motivation in order to reach our goals, no matter how far they seem. However, the thing is, perfectionists, they tend to set unrealistically high standards for themselves, and they view their results as either a success or a complete failure. There's no in between. And so, why is this bad? It's because they link their self-worth to how perfectly they perform. Seems pretty harsh, doesn't it? And in my own personal experience, I've always deeply connected with this idea of perfectionism, even in school right now. And that's because I'm so obsessed with getting good grades, making sure I'm always right, and keeping a good view of how everyone saw me. I wanted everyone to think that I was this cool and smart person, but it all just came at a high price. I didn't try out new things. I didn't step out of my comfort zone. I didn't take opportunities. Why? Because I was too scared to fail. And I believe that that is one of my most biggest regrets and mistakes. Because instead of widening out my comfort zone, my bubble was only getting smaller and smaller, falling into this perfectionism spiral. This quest to perfectionism, it can feel like an endless race with no finish line. Because it is. I want you all to ask yourselves, does perfectionism really exist? Now, if that answer is no, then why are we trying so hard to achieve something that isn't even real? And what's worse is, what if I tell you that by trying to get perfectionism, we're actually holding us back from reaching true fulfillment, success, and most importantly, our own happiness? This begs the need for a balance. So, Brené Brown, a researcher and author of The Gifts of Imperfection, she defines perfectionism as this self-destructive, addictive belief system, fueling this primary thought that if I look perfect and I do everything perfectly, I might as well just escape the painful feelings of shame, judgment, and blame. According to Medical News Today, toxic perfectionism seems to affect young adolescents particularly hard. With almost 30% of these undergraduate students who are widely associated with perfectionism, they have a higher risk of depression and suicide. More specifically, in a study released in 2020 by the National Library of Medicine, researchers identified a strong correlation between perfectionism and anxiety. In fact, over the past 30 years, both perfectionism and mental health problems have risen up at a disturbing rate across the whole globe, and more specifically, specifically the US, UK, and Canada. This needs to stop. Adam Grant, a psychology professor at the Wharton Business School, mentioned in his book, Hidden Potential, 3 things that straight A students fail to get right. In their mission to get flawless results, they are 1, too focused on details that simply don't matter. They're trying to get every single little thing correct, and so they're overthinking all of their decisions. They need to understand that life is filled with unexpected things, and we need to learn to adapt to that. Secondly, they have this inner critic in the back of their minds that constantly tells them that they're not good enough. And because of this, it makes it even harder to learn from mistakes. And finally, they tend to avoid situations or difficult tasks that may lead to failure. Moreover, in Carol Dweck's theory of fixed and growth mindsets, mentioned in her book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, explains this way of thinking. A fixed mindset is all about the outcome. If I fail, everything goes to waste. Why did I do all this just for me to fail? That's the kind of mindset these people have. And that is why they tend to avoid any kind of difficult situations where they're not guaranteed success. On the other hand, a growth mindset allows people to value their actions regardless of the outcome. They're able to approach situations with an open mind, ready to learn from their mistakes and accept their flaws. And because of this, they have a much higher success rate. Now, we enter wabi-sabi, a Japanese aesthetic philosophy that was first accounted for in the 15th century by a Zen monk named Murata Njugo. It celebrates the beauty of imperfections, impermanence, and incompleteness. It acknowledges that nothing in the world is truly perfect. It accepts that flaws are inevitable, but that shouldn't stop something from being extraordinary. Just because I made one little mistake doesn't mean I'm not good enough. Rather than finding faults and cracks, tears, and other imperfections, wabi-sabi allows us to understand that nothing in the world can be perfect. And so, from a crack in a precious plate to life's most monumental losses, wabi-sabi gives us a way to find strength in the process of repair. So you might be wondering, how can I find this balance? Well, first, I want to make it clear that even if you're embracing imperfections, it doesn't mean that you're settling for lower standards. You should still have the same motivation to reach your goals, no matter how far and impossible they seem. This is like perfectionism, because by having this perfectionism mindset, it's actually pushing us to become our best selves. However, by also embracing our imperfections, we're acknowledging that nothing is truly perfect, and researchers identified that people have become more resilient, creative, and happier in the long run. They're able to adapt to challenges, learn from their mistakes, and find beauty in the most unexpected places. And I believe that's one of the most important things in our lives. So, back to how we can find this balance. You might be wondering, so what can I do to find this balance in the first place that I so desperately need? Here are a few practical strategies to help you on your journey. First, set realistic goals. Take those large, impossible-looking goals into smaller, achievable tasks. This way, you can stop the feeling of being overwhelmed by your perfectionistic expectations. For example, if you have this 5,000-word essay that is due next week, you wouldn't want to do it all in one day, would you? You would want to split it into each day and find a goal for each day so you can achieve it. And by the end of the week, you will have accomplished this task, even though it felt impossible at first. Second, prioritize self-compassion. Treat yourselves with the same love and respect that you would treat to your best friend. Or just look around you in the room right now. You wouldn't want to treat anyone poorly, would you? So why do it to yourselves? Third, embrace vulnerability. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and authentic, even if it feels uncomfortable. Share your struggles with others, because chances are they're going to be facing the same situation as you. And just watch as your connections begin to flourish. And finally, adopt a growth mindset. Instead of viewing these challenges as threats to your self-worth, see them as opportunities for growth and development. Embrace the process of learning and persevere in the face of adversity. In a world that often celebrates perfections, let's not forget to find this balance and also acknowledge the beauty and power of imperfections. Let us embrace the cracks, the flaws that make us human. Let us see through the illusion that absolute perfection equals superiority and balance it with our motivation to reach our goals. For it is in our imperfections that we find our true strength, resilience, and capacity for growth. Let us find this balance together. Thank you.